welcome to 1128 Community. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Mike, and it really is so good to be here with you this morning. I co-pastor 1128 alongside my wife, Colleen, and it's our hope and really the hope of our church that this will be a place where you can learn to set rhythms and values with Jesus at the center. And this morning, we really want this to be a space where you can explore spirituality, faith, a relationship with Jesus, and what that might look like in your life. And that this would be a community where you can have hard conversations, ask hard questions, and feel like, man, I'm not being judged for that. So that's the kind of space that we want to be. Now, last week, we jumped into a brand new series called New Year, Same Me. Does anybody feel like they're the same person they were last year? All right, so most of us are feeling like we're a brand new person is what I'm seeing. But for those of you like me that you're like, I don't know, it's been a couple weeks and I feel like I'm the same exact person I was like in December, like that's kind of what we're getting at. Is like it's a new year, but a lot of times we just carry over the same old habits and rhythms and values and problems that we've always experienced. And so this year, we're going to try to become different people. We're going to try to put ourselves in a space where God can transform us and change us and allow us to live and love like Jesus. And so last week we said that by the end of the year, statistics tell us that only 9% of people will actually be able to say that they completed their resolutions. Now that's really depressing. And so I told you, don't worry, there's hope. 43% of you, us, will be able to say that we made it to February, right? Like that's something to be really excited about because like you could go a whole month almost. Half of us can anyways. Can make it a whole month before we give up on our resolutions and our goals and our desires to change and be better people. Now, I wanted to know what is it about us as people that causes us to fail so often? And so I started looking up like reasons we fail, reasons we can't complete resolutions, like reasons I'm no good at life. You know, it was a weird road that I went down, but here's what I found. We got 10 reasons, the most common reasons people fail. The first reason, the number one reason people fail at completing their goals and their resolutions is because they go it alone. They go solo. How many of you would say that you have failed something at one point or another because you tried going alone? Yeah, a lot of us got hands up. But the second reason that we fail is because we set the bar way too high. We got really high expectations. This here says if you want to lose weight, you put a number on it that's achievable rather than leaving it open-ended or expecting the world in just a few months. Like this is taken from a website, and I had it down, but now I realize I didn't keep it in my notes. But we set the expectations too high. And then we feel like, man, that's just not achievable. I can't get there. The next reason that we fail is because we give up too easy. We say like, yeah, I don't know. Like that was a great idea, but I'm out. Yeah, I'm going to give up on that one. That one, maybe next year, right? Or maybe next decade. Right? Or you say, I don't have enough time. Anybody say they don't have enough time? You have a great idea about how you're going to make life better this year, and then you're like, I don't have time for that. Who am I kidding? Right? Like we all start to schedule things, and then we forget to schedule the things that we want to schedule, and so then we look at our calendar, and we're like, I can't fit that in. I don't have time for that. Or you say, I don't have enough money. Reason number 5 is that you don't have enough money because a gym membership costs money, eating right. Eating healthy costs money. Man, I'm just going to keep eating junk food because it's way cheaper to do it that way. But not enough money becomes a reason that we fail at meeting our resolutions or our expectations. This one seems pretty obvious to me as reasons that we would fail, but maybe for you, you're like, I never thought about that. We don't have a plan. We just put something out there and it's like, it'll happen. And then at the end of the year, we're like, it didn't happen. I wonder why it didn't happen. It's because we didn't have a plan. We failed because we didn't prepare and say, like, these are the boxes I'm going to check. We didn't make, like, SMART goals that were measurable and achievable and had a time thing to it. Like, we don't go into our resolution or our goal for the year and make a plan. That's the number 6 reason. The next one is that we don't believe in ourselves. We hit a stumbling point, and we start to think like, oh, I really don't know if I can do this. I don't know that I have what it takes. I don't know if I'm able to complete this. And so we give up. Because if we're being honest, a lot of us would rather say, like, I chose not to go and finish it, rather than saying, like, I failed. But the reality is we're failing either way, and sorry to burst your bubble if you're one of those people. Another reason, number 8, is because of, I just said that one. No self-belief. Next one, social situations. We have a goal, we have resolutions, we want to change who we are. But the people around us either limit the ability to change, or maybe you're one of those people that's like, I'm going to do dry January, and then you go somewhere and everybody's like, why aren't you having a drink? Right? And so then you find yourself in these weird, awkward places where it's like, oh man, there's a lot of peer pressure to just go with the flow. And so we end up giving up and saying like, I'll get back to it later. Or, this one just seems funny to me. We forget. Anybody here ever say, I'm going to do something, and then you forget, and you're like, oh, what was that thing I was going to do? Nobody? Yeah, I know. We all do it, right? It's like, I went into this room to do a thing, but why am I in this room now? I forget, right? Or I made a plan to go and do something with somebody at some point in time, but I didn't write it down in the moment, and now I'm trying to remember. Oh well. It'll come to me, right? We forget things all the time, and as silly as it sounds, we put out goals and resolutions in life, and we just genuinely forget them. And at the end of the year, we don't even know that we didn't succeed, which is the beauty of forgetting. But anyways, maybe you caught this. It took me a few times to catch a trend, if you will, but there were 3 things that were similar enough in kind of my estimation, right? It took me a few times. Like I said, it took me a few times to read through this list and to really process it and think through it. But 3 of the things on this list are people-related. They're people-related. The first is going solo, right? When I go solo, it's like, I don't need people. When I go solo, it's like, I can do it better on my own. I can do it faster on my own. I know, some of you are like, I just do it right on my own. Those other people, I got to show them how to do it the right way. And so the first one that's about people is going solo. And it's maybe not even as much about them as it is about you and what that says about who you are. The reality is, when you're going solo, you really don't have a support system. You don't have people that are connected to you and cheering you on and encouraging you and pushing you and holding you accountable. The second one, related to people, is that you have no self-belief, right? Again, it's, I hit this stumbling block, and I don't believe in myself, and you turn around, and if you don't have people with you, you got nobody there to say, hey, you can do this. You can push through. I believe in you. When you lack self-belief, you need people there to raise you up, to say, you got this. No self-belief is a people reality. And then the last one, that third people reality that should be pretty obvious, is the social situations. We find ourselves in social situations with the wrong people that cause us to modify, change, or let go of the goals and the resolutions and our hopes and our dreams. And rather than pushing us forward, when we find ourselves in social situations with the wrong people, we find ourselves slowly falling away from the mark and where we want to be. When your support system isn't supportive, you're not going to be able to achieve that goal. And that's the reality for each and every one of us. I can relate with this. Maybe you can relate as well. But for me, as a pastor, I can relate to like failing goals and the stress of like doing all of the things. In 2022, Barna Group, which is a Christian research firm, they study like data and insights and trends affecting faith, culture, and ministry. I'd encourage you to check them out if you've never heard of them before, because they got all kinds of great resources out there. But they said in 2022 that 42% of pastors have considered quitting or have quit in the last couple of years. That's crazy. Like almost 1 in 2 pastors is on the verge of being like, I'm out. And it's, I think, probably related to this question about people. They probably feel like they're going alone. They maybe don't believe in themselves. I meet with some local pastors regularly, and those are 2 things that I often hear is, man, I feel like I'm going alone, even though they're in this group of other pastors. I don't feel like I got a support there. Or my church is all kind of like this type of person, and I'm a different type of person, and like I'm going alone. Or they feel like I'm not good enough. My messages aren't good enough. My leadership's not good enough. I don't have a vision that's big enough, right? Like this is the reality that pastors, and probably you in your own work or in your home, struggle with. Like there's these questions of like, man, should I just give up? And I think that it comes back to, again, the people thing. You don't have people in your corner. And 43% of pastors, according to the Barna Group, they report feeling isolated and lonely. We're a lonely group of people, us pastors. Even though we're up here and there's all of you and we're connected online, like pastors are lonely at times. And I think ultimately you can know a whole bunch of people, but if you're not connected to people that really genuinely know you, if you don't have a support system that's there, has your back, that you can count on to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, but to say, you've got this, God's got you, you're going to feel isolated. Here's how I kind of relate with some of those things about loneliness and feeling isolated. For the last couple years, I've had to start giving a message almost every Sunday, which for me is a new thing because I've always worked with students or I've been a campus pastor, and so I didn't have to give a weekly Sunday message. And now here's the thing that pastors say a lot, like Sunday's coming. Sunday's always coming. You get to Saturday and you're like, oh, there is a Sunday. In fact, tomorrow. And so every Sunday you have to pump out some sort of new, original, inspiring content. And I started to feel like, man, this is really hard to do. Like, I'd much prefer being the youth pastor that gets to preach like once a year. I got 6 months to plan and prepare for that, right? But like now I have to do this almost every week, and every single week having to put out a message when it's just you is really, really hard. And so every week I set this goal for myself. It's a great goal in theory, and I say, I'm going to have the Sunday morning message finished by the end of day Wednesday. It's going to be written, it's going to be completed, it's going to be all ready to go, and it's going to be inspired, and it's going to be all the things, right? And when we first started as a church, and I first started having to give messages every single week, I'll be honest, I rarely made it. Like rarely. It'd be Friday afternoon and I would be sitting there thinking like, how do I say the thing that I'm supposed to say? Like I got to cram this all in. And I started finding that I was getting distracted or procrastinating. Any procrastinators? Yeah, the reality is like we all kind of push things off at times. And I would avoid this thing because it was like, man, that's really hard for me to do and to put onto paper what I feel like I'm supposed to say. And I'd avoid it. And then I would start to feel like, man, this message just maybe wasn't what it was meant to be. Or I'd prioritize other things. And I realized ultimately, I did not have people that were pushing me, encouraging me, challenging me, giving me feedback. And so that put everything on me. And when everything was on me, that's when I never or very rarely hit that goal of having the message written by the end of day Wednesday. Now, here's the reality. We're a couple years in at this point, and the goal has not changed. The message is still supposed to be written by the end of day Wednesday. But one thing that has changed is I've got a support system now. I've got people that I was like, I need to hear from you and you and you regularly all throughout the week as I'm working on these messages, right? So I've got Nikki and I've got Colleen who I send them my notes, and usually Nikki will tell me, hey, you didn't include enough Bible. Here's 18 more passages that you should include there, right? Colleen will tell me that story is inappropriate. You should remove that. Take out that joke because no one will understand where you're coming from. I've got Maddie, who is, I don't know how this guy did this, but he's on a cruise somewhere really warm right now. But anyways, I got Maddie who sits there and he's got this giant brain. And so he's like, have you ever thought about this in this way? And I'm like, no. Now I'm wondering if I should change the whole message. I've got Natalia who's like, you've got to be creative, Mike. Your creativity is limited. You have to think outside of yourself, right? I've got Tim, who's always telling me to read more books. I've got Dan, who's like, now don't go off on that track, stay on this track. I've got Amanda that's like, now I have a hard question for you. I've got people in my corner that are challenging me, encouraging me, keeping me on the right path. And it's no longer just on me to come up with a message on Sunday mornings. Or for Sunday mornings. I'm not coming up with it on Sunday mornings. Right? I don't feel the pressure that I used to feel because I know people that are in my corner are going to offer me feedback and inspiration, and God's going to use them to help put a message together for Sunday that hopefully meets you right where you are. The support system is essential in my life, and the support system, I believe, is essential in your life as well. When we want to hit goals, we want to know that we've got people that are cheering us on and encouraging us. We want to know that we've got a support system that cares, right? When you have a support system that cares, you're going to be better off. That's just facts. When you got a support system that cares, your life is going to be better because you're not going to be alone. You're going to be motivated. You're going to see things differently, and you're going to be able to put your best effort forward. And the truth is this, we are all relational beings. God created us to be connected, to have friendships, to have genuine conversations, to know deep, intimate things about each other. We weren't made to do life alone. God intends for us to do life with others. We aren't meant to carry the burden of everything on our shoulders. It's meant to be spread out, carried among a group of people. God intends for us to have community, not just with himself, but with each other. And this comes from Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30, that God hopes that this community helps the burden to be light. A light burden is when we start to feel rested and ready for what's ahead. When we carry the burdens ourselves, that's when we end up feeling burned out. We end up being frustrated. We start to fail more and more often, or we just say, I'm giving up, I'm out, I'm done. But having somebody there, having that support system there that cares and has got your back, that's freeing. It's encouraging. And if we're being completely honest, if we're going to just write one thing down today and store it in the back of our mind when we start to think man, I feel like I'm doing life alone, we're going to say a connected life is a better life. A connected life is a better life, period. Exclamation point, hashtag, whatever you got to do, remember that. When you're tempted to go it alone, just remember that connected life is a better life. When you feel man, I'm starting to hit some stumbling blocks, think I need that connection to people because they're going to help me out. Let's look at what Hebrews has to say, right? Hebrews is an epistle, which is a fancy way of saying it's a letter. We don't really know who the author is, but some people think it might be Paul. Other people think that it's Barnabas. Other people would say it's Apollos. Some people would say that it's somebody else altogether. But what we do know is that the author of Hebrews had a firsthand relationship with the disciples being those that did life with Jesus. They were connected to this author who wrote Hebrews, and so we have like a book that's really focused on the gospel, Jesus, and how he lived. Similarly, we don't know who the audience is in Hebrews. It's just kind of like written to people, an audience. But what we can assume is that the people hearing this have a deep understanding of the Old Testament. Specifically, they have a deep understanding of the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, if you will. And so they know all about Abraham. They know about Moses. They know about the 10 Commandments. They know about the parting of they know the history. They know the Old Testament. And so the author of Hebrews starts off in chapter 10, verse 19, saying, therefore. Somebody always used to say, like, if there's a therefore, it's there for a reason. So we're going to assume that this is here for a reason. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is, his body. And since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from the guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. This is the first chunk here that we're going to look at, right? Like this is what I want you to notice. This right here tells us that the connected life, the first part of the connected life is about being connected to God. The first part of the connected life is about being connected to your Creator, the one who gives you life, the one who dreamt you up, the one who saw you and loved you, despite the mess that you were. Right? And we know that if God is our first connection, there must be a second connection, but like this first connection is so important that Jesus came, lived among us on earth, and died, taking our place so that we could have life, because Jesus defeated death and rose again, and that life is what connects us to God the Father. And it starts with the gospel. That's what this is. This is the good news that we can be connected to God the Father. Long time ago, before Jesus, only a select few were able to be in the presence of God. The high priest, a couple times a year, could go into that space and to be in God's presence. The rest of us, we just had to like kind of wait on the outside and say like, hey, what'd he say to you? What'd you get from God this time? What's God wanting to do in our lives? What's God wanting to do for our people, for our nation? Right? But like Jesus, through death and resurrection, opened up a gateway. That curtain, the veil that was torn, if you read that part of the story about Jesus' death and resurrection, that was torn in two. God's presence was no longer on the other side of this curtain. God's presence was there and available to all of us through Jesus. That's the gospel. That's the good news. And now you and I, we don't have to wait on a high priest to go into God's presence to come back and to tell us all about God. We can step into God's presence because Jesus is the one, the high priest that has made a way for all of us to have that moment, that lifetime of connectedness to the Father. The first thing about the connected life is that we need to be connected to God. Let's continue here in Hebrews chapter 10. As the author goes on to say, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Like the second thing about the connected life is that we should be connected to others. We should be connected to other people. Look at the person next to you. Not a lot of heads turn. Look at the person next to you. Like, you should be connected to them. If they're family and you're not connected to them, like, you should be connected to them. Look the other way. You should be connected to that person too. Look behind you, because chances are the person behind you is not a part of your family at this point. Like, you should know who that person is. Look in front of you, like the back of the head of the person in front of you, you should know what the front of their head looks like. You should be connected to them, right? Like, this is the second part of the connected life, is that you should be connected to others. And it's not just any other. It's not just any person. It's others who will spur you on towards love and good deeds. It's others that are going to say, are you loving the way Jesus would love? Are you living the way Jesus would live? We have to be connected to people that spur us on towards love and good deeds. Now, it's interesting because depending on which translation you read, this could come off a couple different ways. It could say, spur you on towards love, like I'm going to live a life of love and to care about the people with me. Or a different translation, you might get this, like it's going to point you to love. It's going to point you back to God. No matter how you look at it, are you connected to people that are either helping you to live and love like Jesus, or are you connected to people that are reminding you that Jesus is love? Both of those things are important, and you need to be connected to people that are reminding you of that. And then it goes on to say, like, you should continue meeting together, kind of like they did in Acts chapter 2, where it was the first church, and they were meeting together, and they were sharing life together. They were having meals together. They were seeing healings happen. They were sharing all their possessions, giving to the poor, taking care of the widowed. And they were doing all of that because it was encouraging, and it helped them to sense like they were in God's presence. And then you should do this all the more as the day approaches. As we get closer to the return of Jesus, life is going to get harder. And so you're going to need people that you're connected to even more. You're going to need those people even more. Paul writes to Timothy in 2 Timothy, get here as fast as you can. Demas, chasing fads, went off to Thessalonica, and he left me here. Crescens is in Galatia province, Titus in Dalmatia. Luke is the only one here, and we all know about Luke. Like, he's all right, right? Like, bring Mark with you. He'll be my right-hand man. Like, Paul is like, I need people in my corner. I got Luke already, but like, yeah, bring Mark. Like Mark and Luke and you all together, like I need you. I need my people. I need my support system. And when the support system fails you, because Paul says, at my preliminary hearing, no one stood by me, like my support system, they all ran like scared rabbits. But it doesn't matter. The master stood by me and helped me spread the message loud and clear to those who had never heard it. I was snatched from the jaws of the lion. God's looking after me, keeping me safe in the kingdom of heaven. All praise to him. Praise forever. Oh, yes. When your support system fails you, or when they run away like scared rabbits, you have to be connected to God, because God is going to be the one that says, you've got it. And you've got it because I've got you. You have to be connected to God and to others. That's what your support system needs to be. Do you have a support system? Do you have people in your life right now that you know, like, they've got your back? That they're going to tell you, like, you've got this. Or they're going to say, like, hey, don't do that. They're going to tell you the things you want to hear, but they're also going to tell you the truth that really sometimes sucks to hear. Do you have that? Are they encouraging you to know love? Are they encouraging you to live out love, spurring you towards good deeds? One of my good friends, his name is Rex, and he's 15 years or so older than me, and so I thought at first would have a hard time connecting, because there is an age gap there, and when I was, just a wee little baby, he was already in high school. But, it's not as weird once you get into the real world and you start meeting people that are all different ages. And so I remember when Colleen and I were first married and we met Rex. And interestingly enough, Rex was newly married himself, even being 15 years older than me. And so we hit it off. Literally, we would go and tee off at like 6:30 in the morning once or twice a week, and we would play rounds of golf and have a lot of fun and connect and talk about life. And that round of golf turned into meals together. It turned into small groups. It turned into early morning coffees. Like, it became a relationship where it was like a give and take. I felt like I was learning so much from Rex, and I would hope that he felt like he was learning and being inspired by things that I was offering him. But I'll never forget the one night where Rex and I had a conversation, and it was maybe one of the most important conversations I've ever had in life. Colleen and I were maybe a year and a half, 2 years into our marriage, and it was one of those nights where it was like, I don't know that I want to like spend any more time with you because like my shirt wasn't folded the right way, or like something tiny just didn't go the way that I wanted. And I was annoyed, I was frustrated, and I'll be honest, like I raised my voice, and I'm sure like we went back and forth, and being like young, like 20-somethings, like you really get into it, and it's like, no, I'm right, and you're wrong, and we went back and forth, and eventually it was like, I gotta get out of here. Like, I gotta leave. I don't even know where I'm going, but like, I'm done talking to you. And I left. Probably slammed the door on the way out, stomped down all 3 flights of stairs, got in the car, and I was like, I don't know where I'm going though. And I called my buddy Rex. I was like, Rex, like, listen, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm real mad at Colleen. I don't really know why I'm mad at her. Can we talk? And he's like, yeah. I don't know what Rex was doing, but he dropped whatever it was he was doing. And we met up at a little place and had some French fries. I remember that specifically. And I was ready to complain about my wife. I was ready to tell Rex like how awful she was. And I did that. I put it all out there. And he did not agree with me. He didn't say like, yeah, you're in the right. He didn't do any of the stuff that I like really wanted him to do. What he said was like, yeah, you got to be better about how you're loving your wife. Like, you're kind of being a jerk. He might have used stronger language as well. But he really called me out in that moment. And he told me, like, hey, if you're going to have a meaningful relationship with Colleen, you got to be different. You can't expect her to be any different. Like, she'll figure out her stuff, but like, you have to worry about you. You have to be more connected to God. And that conversation, I think that it really changed the way that I thought about it. Because I, up until that point, like just kind of believed I'm always right. Still struggle with it sometimes, but Rex reminded me, like, you're not always right, and even when you are right, like, you don't have to hold it over somebody. But being right isn't worth, like, breaking apart a relationship. Do you have a Rex in your life that's going to kind of call you out? Also, if you're married or you're dating or you're in a relationship and you have a person that is like, man, when things are hard, like I go to them and they're like, you're right. Your wife does suck, or you're right, your husband shouldn't have talked to you that way. That is not Rex. Stop talking to that person. They are not there to help your relationship. As much as you want them to be, they're hurting your relationship. Find somebody that wants your relationship to be successful and to succeed and to tell you, like, hey, you've got to change yourself, pal. You got to do something here. Let God worry about them. Do you have a Rex in your life? Do you have a person that's going to tell you how it is, to call you out, to say, be better, trust Jesus more, change who you are? Do you have a Rex that's going to say, like, hey, God's got you? Do you have that person? Your life will be better when you have a Rex or a Jessica or a Matt, a Sean. Your life is better when you are connected to the right people, and the right people are those that push you towards Jesus, encourage you towards love and good deeds. That's who you need to be connected to. The connected life, it's a better life. And if you're going to make a difference, like if you're going to do things different in 2024, you've got to be connected to both Jesus and the right people, the people that are helping you to live and love like Jesus. If you're going to do life different, you've got to be connected. If we're going to chase the right dreams, we've got to be connected. If we're going to raise our kids right, we've got to be connected. If we're going to impact our coworkers, our neighbors, our classmates, our extended family, we have got to be connected to the right people, because a connected life is a better life, and it's a better life because it helps us make a difference. It's a better life because it lightens the mental load, the burdens that we carry. The connected life, it reminds us that our experience is not a life lived alone. And it encourages us to be the best version of ourselves. And I want you right now just to imagine the end of this year. It seems so far away. But imagine December 31st, 2024. You're sitting there. You're asking the question, like, what was life like this year? What do you hope that you could say about it? What do you hope that you could say, I did this? Who do you hope was in your life and helped you meet those dreams and those goals and those desires of your heart? Who would you be able to thank at the end of this year for being in your corner, for being your support system, for cheering you on and pushing you forward? A connected life in 2024, it's going to be a better life. But it starts by getting yourself connected to the right folks. The Creator and those that spur you towards love and good deeds. If you're not connected here at our church, I'd love to help you get connected. In the next couple weeks, we've got all kinds of brand new spring groups launching with great group leaders, and I'd love to help you find a group a life group or a cohort or something where you could just meet people and start to discover the people that want to be in your corner. If you're not connected here, like talk to me, talk to Colleen, talk to Casey, talk to Natalia, talk to Matt when he's back from cruising the Caribbean. Like talk to people and say, I want to be connected because I want this year to be better. That's my hope for you. And if you're on the fence about any of that, start by connecting here and ask God to help grow you and to help you step out in faith to connect with somebody that you've not yet connected with. Let me pray for you now. God, would you allow us to be more deeply connected individuals? Would we experience the fullness of those connections? Would we experience the life that comes out of connections? Would we be better people because we're connected to you and we're connected to people that challenge us and encourage us? God, would you move in our hearts? Bring people to mind right now that we need to be connected to this year. We pray that in your name. Amen.